Everyone was in a rather jolly mood. Even Angela had been invited, and seemed grateful to be part of the festivities. Darcy had brought a hamper of dry goods from the pantry, and Adela had carried several wineskins and a small sack all the way up the hill. Eustace left my side to stand with Darcy for a while. The two embraced and were soon seated on the slope of the hill, looking out over the distant village and chatting animatedly. Man, Cece really likes that word. Sister Hedwig, would you care for a drink? Oh, why not? She passed me the last wineskin she had been carrying. The rest had been distributed amongst the others. I'm afraid I don't have a cup. Nobody does. Just take a sip. Oh, we're getting crunk, bitches! I put my lips to the stopper and did my best to angle the container to get the liquid pouring, but I let it flow much too fast. Chug! 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 I soon had wine running out of the sides of my mouth. Slow down! Save some for everybody. She laughed and brushed the sides of my mouth with her thumbs. Unless you would like someone to lap it off your... Ouch! Revenge is sweeter than any wine. That is only fair, I suppose. Ladies, don't fight over me. Well, at least not here. Do it in my bedroom later tonight. Indeed. May I have a sip of that wine? Girl, you can have the whole damn bottle. Really? Of course. You most certainly can. I apologize. I just don't remember the last time I was any fun. You said it, Sister Angela, not I. Sister Adela, telling it like it is. Telling it like it is. Nah, it didn't work. With a sheepish grin, Adela indicated for me to pass the skin to Angela. Oh, I did more than pass the skin to Angela the other night. Angela took a smaller, more practiced swig than I had, and then passed the container to Adela. I don't know what's come over me, truth be told. Perhaps it's the snow. She looked at me as she said this. Good thing it's snowing, because I'm in the mood to do some plowing, right, Hedwig? I flushed red and turned to glance at some of the others. The younger set were piling snow onto Flora, who was shouting curses and squirming in her wheelbarrow. Charity and Marta were taking a stroll through the snow, occasionally looking back towards us and waving at someone or other. Eustace and Darcy had spread out one of their traveling cloaks and were laying down together, chattering away. Margaret and Catherine were standing together, taking hefty sips out of a wineskin and speaking in hushed tones. When she saw me looking their way, Margaret smiled weakly. I could only assume they were repairing things after their little spat. Sister Angela! What a pleasant surprise. Indeed. It has been a while since I imbibed. I think I remember the last time. You read poetry to us in the Misericorde, I think. I will have to take your word for it. This must have been before my time. I would have given anything to see that. Would you ever consider giving a repeat performance? No. I don't think so. Aw, but I remember it being rather good. I think it made me blush. Oh, really now? She reached for the wineskin and yanked it away from Adela somewhat forcefully and took a heartier swig. Isn't the view lovely? It's a little dizzying. From here, I could see not only the village of Lynborough, but the road leading away from it into the mist. I wondered how far it was to London, or even another country. It was hard to fathom the distance after a life like mine. The little thatched buildings down the hill might as well have been a different celestial body to me. The village looks so dainty from up here, like a little model I could pick up and play with. Like the sort of thing a tactician might place on a board. Certainly. I remember what Darcy had told me about the village. Had she broken the news to the others yet? I glanced over at her and Eustace. Eustace looked rather grave. Perhaps Darcy was filling her in now. I decided it was Darcy's business to share with the rest of us and refrain from prompting her. I looked down at the little Hudson roads. I hoped, despite how horrible they had been to me, that God would spare them from disease and death. I was in a rather forgiving mood. You can see my old manse from here. Catherine and Margaret had wandered over to join the group. Angela tensed up but said nothing. Really? Yes. The large house nearest to the lake. It looks massive, larger than our chapel, surely. Oh, it was quite grand. And we were quite rich. To be honest, I'm not sure who owns the place anymore. We had such a large staff maintaining the vineyards. I met the man once when I first came to the Abbey. Did I ever tell you that? Really? No, I did not. What was he like? He was polite. He was proud of the grapes. I'm afraid I cannot recall his name. He was tall, I do remember that. He had a beard, and I care not. He could burn for all I care. The whole lot can. Easy. She reached out to her friend as she said this, squeezing her arm gently as she spoke. Catherine smiled and placed her hand on Margaret's in return. I saw Flora's painting, by the way. I winced. I could see Margaret squeeze Catherine's arm harder. Did you now? Indeed. She's a talented young woman, it would seem. I rather like it. I'm surprised. I seem to recall that Italian convent of yours, leaving you with an exhaustingly refined sense of taste. Well, I would never compare Flora to Tura, but she has skill far beyond what any of us could dream of. And perhaps I was drawn in by the subject matter. Odd, considering it looks nothing like me. How much have you had to drink? That's really rich coming from you, Catherine. Enough to admit that I've been rather standoffish for a long time. That's one way of putting it. Drunk enough to admit fault, that's all well and good. How much more must you drink to apologize? Would you like an apology? I'm not sure we have the time for a proper one. The sun will be setting in, what, 4, 5 hours? The two stared at each other in the face for a moment. Nobody said anything. Catherine broke first, however. Oh, what's the use? I do enjoy a healthy amount of spite, but who has time for grudges? You and I have time for little else. However, I would vastly prefer to be part of this group than apart from it. And this really is strange, Angela. What happened to you? Angela shot me a private glance. It seemed that all it had taken to soften Angela was the knowledge that the world was larger and darker than either of us could possibly know. Or she got laid 7 ways from Sunday, Hedwig. You ever think of that? Something good. Inquiring minds. Angela shook her head. Another day. I think I would prefer to simply enjoy returning into everyone's company for now. Have it your way. These women had some catching up to do, clearly. I excused myself and made my way toward Flora and her friends. Oh, hello, Hedwig. Hiya. Hi. What are you three chatting about? Nothing. Flowers. Inferno. They had clammed up rather awkwardly. Goodness, quite a range of topics. Look, it was sort of private, that's all. But listen, I wanted to thank you for your art lessons and stuff. Oh, don't mention it. I hardly taught you anything. We drew cats once, and now look at you. I could never paint something like you did. Even just finishing the face is very impressive. Yeah, I don't know. I think I still owe you thanks for giving me the initial push. Well, you asked me to teach... Hedwig, do me a favor and take the fucking compliment, yeah? Of course. I apologize. What do you think you'll paint next? Flora gazed out over the hill, into the distance. She looked apprehensive. Good question. Would love to do whole scenes one day. Frescoes, I don't know. What's a fresco? It's a big painting on a wall. Or ceiling. Oh, what a lovely idea. There's so many big open spaces in the more Romanesque portions of the Abbey that would look lovely with some art on them. The three friends exchanged awkward looks. Yeah. Anyway. You've got issues, but I guess I do too. I'd probably be just like you if I was twice my age and got stuck in a hole my entire life. Overly narrow superlative, but okay. So, sorry if I was ever annoying, and thanks for the art stuff. Oh, and thanks for saving my life that one time. I could see Violet and Bridget's expressions turn exasperated the moment I opened my mouth. If the one on the left is telling you to just shut the fuck up and take the compliment, then just take the compliment. You are most welcome, Sister Flora. I'm proud to have made a difference, and I'm sorry for my own misapprehensions about you. I must have made your life miserable for a while. Yeah, well, like I said, you're a freak, but at the end of the day, I still think more fondly of you than most of the rest of them. I'm flattered. Flora grinned widely. Bridget, Violet, would you excuse us for just a moment? Oh, certainly. Flora looked quite serious. The Superior's window doesn't lock. What? Not saying it again. Explain some things, though, yeah? Anyway. What? Oi! Violet! Come push me somewhere! Flora's friends wheeled her away, leaving me dumbfounded. I turned to find somewhere else in the crowd to stand and passed Darcy and Eustace on the way. I did not want to interrupt them, but as I passed, Darcy held her hand out to graze mine. So many warm gestures were being given. So many relationships were mending. Was this a miracle? How does it all go wrong? I noticed Moira waving me back over to the group I had left earlier and obliged her. Hedwig, have another drink? This one's running a bit low. I wouldn't want to deprive you. I gratefully took the wineskin she was offering me and took a more practiced sip. We've been catching up with Sister Angela. She still refuses to regale us with her poetry, however. All things in time. I gotta write some fresh bars. Let a girl live, fam. Take as much time as you like for that particular affectation. I'm not sure I'm quite ready to hear you say petals all over again. You wrote poetry about flowers? Moira snickered. Wrote, read. We used to have quite a poetry circle going in the Misericord. The rap battles we would have, oh my god. Didn't you ask Darcy to help you write a letter to Gwurfel once? Indeed. I had no idea who Gwurfel was, but from the tenor of the exchange, I intuited that this was intended as a teasing remark, the kind Angela might react poorly to. To my surprise, however, she seemed unbothered. Perhaps I've been too harsh about the poetry. I would love to plop Hedwig down for some readings and see how long she could stand it. Oh, reading poetry, is that what we're calling it now? Is this a bit like the joke Charity told in the Misericord? I put together why that was funny, eventually, I'll have you all know. Oh, good. Do explain. It was the one about taking the road less traveled, yes? Referring to intercourse between a man and a woman. Good lord, she is clever. Continue, Sister Hedwig. Well, the road less traveled down there would be, you know, the bumhole, yeah. Yes. I know that the initial punchline has to do with pregnancy, but also it follows that the joke is also about the woman's husband being bad at sexual relations. Because having something put up that hole is, well, rather unpleasant. Is it? You're very close, Hedwig. Yes. You're about an inch away, is what I would say. What am I missing? Oh, nothing at all. Why? We were interrupted by a shout from afar. Who wants to go sledging? Ooh, that does sound fun. Oh, that sounds a bit dangerous, what with your leg. I'll be careful. Please. The whole congregation merged together in something of a circle. I think sledging is fun. Well, yes, but some sort of team activity might be enjoyable. I thought your team activities were just, your average Friday night. We could always race. Yes, or we could play rounders. Sledging is preferable to rounders if that's the choice. Do we have sleds? I do not believe so. I seem to recall that in the past we used old bits of furniture. We're rather light on spare furniture at the moment. Sorry about that. Maybe rounders would be easier to get going. We've got a ball somewhere, and we just need to find a nice thick stick. What about cask lids? For sledging. We have loads of spare barrels in the cellar, surely. A great idea. It's small though, isn't it? Only one person could ride at a time, but we have plenty of them. We could do races. We could even have teams, I reckon. I'm more partial to rounders, thinking on it. The hills are all rather steep. What, scared? No, I would just prefer something more sporting. It doesn't get much more sporting than racing. How about a vote? How many of you think we should go nick some lids and go sledging? Eustace, Darcy, Flora, Bridget, Violet, Catherine, and Margaret all raised their hands. Oh, crumbs. Well, just for the sake of knowing, who'd prefer rounders? Adela, Margaret, Moira, and Catherine raised their hands. Hang on, you two already voted. I'd be happy to do either. I usually am. Hi-yo. Likewise. I didn't realize we could only vote for one or the other. Angela and Marta haven't voted. Or Hedwig, or you for that matter, Charity. Oh, I think I'll be sitting out and watching either way. Thank you very much. As will I. I suppose out of those two activities, rounders would be more appealing. I'd rather not wind up in a wheelbarrow as well. How about you, Hedwig? What is rounders, exactly? If she doesn't know what it is, we really should just go get sleds. Teaching someone a whole new game will take a while. Plus, it'd make the teams unbalanced. Yes, if it's complicated, I'd rather not spoil the fun. I vote sledging. I change my vote then, in that case. Very well. I am, as always, gracious in defeat. Would one or two of you like to accompany me to the cellars to go collect some lids? Sure. Of course. The three of them set off. The rest of us dispersed again, dividing into small groups, sharing wine and grazing on the treats Darcy had brought from the pantry. Angela sidled up to me after collecting some dried fruit, and we stepped away to chat privately. Do you suspect anyone has an inkling? An inkling of what? You know. Oh. I don't think so. Interesting. I was wondering if Catherine had perhaps detected something. Certainly not to my knowledge. I wonder if she will. Perhaps I'll tell her one day. Why would you do that? I don't know. Perhaps I'm overwhelmed with relief. It has been a while since I've spoken to anyone here as a friend. I haven't decided to share intimate things as I used to. Or perhaps I'm drunk. Very possible. You are very beautiful. Thank you. I didn't quite know what to make of her attitude. I would have almost preferred to be at the end of her dagger again, as much as I appreciated the compliment. She was being very sweet, but I'm not sure if sweet was what pulled my thread, so to speak. Would you care to recite some of that poetry for me? Later, perhaps. Very well. Would you care to visit my cell later? There is so much time in the day and the night that will be empty for me now. Empty? You mean... there is nothing left for us to investigate. I told the Superior my theory, and I've presented all of my evidence. I leaned close just to make sure nobody could overhear us. The Superior knows about Eustace now. I told her everything I could. Everything that made sense. And you think it'll be enough? It will have to be. The bishop seemed pleased with my work, for what it's worth. He's preparing to leave soon. I saw him packing. Eustace doesn't suspect anything? Not a thing. In fact, she thinks she successfully bullied me out of investigating her. She made a big show of it last night. And you're playing along? Clever girl? Yes. In that case, it sounds like we will have much to celebrate soon. And I should very much like to spend more time with you in that cell. You learned so much in there, all alone. But there is still so much more you could learn with some company. I could be kept in there until I became an expert. Angela coughed, choking slightly on the piece of fruit she was chewing on. Are you well? Just went down the wrong way. That's what she said. She pounded her fist into her chest and coughed again before clearing her throat. After regaining her composure, she reached out to grab my wrists and pulled me close, bringing her knee between my legs. I exhaled sharply and grinned with glee. I have much to reward you for, but even more to punish you for. Shall we enumerate your crimes? When you first ran into me outside the chapel, that very first day you were released, these thoughts never crossed my mind. Now, though, that was more like it. We continued teasing each other in hushed tones for a while, until the sisters who had left to collect sleds had returned. When they did, the group coalesced once more, awaiting instructions as Moira, Adela, and Margaret handed out the round wooden lids. Took you long enough. It was quite a walk. I had to use the privy, if you must know. Yeah. Right then. Should we just climb that little hillock over there? She pointed to a defilade behind us. It sloped down to reach the even patch of ground we had all been resting on. I felt a sense of relief. I had imagined that we would be sliding down the steep mountain down toward the village. Well, that's nothing. It's a fine start. I won't have anyone breaking their necks on my watch, thank you very much. While some thrill-seekers grumbled, everyone made their way up the smaller hill. Everyone except Marta, who stood at the bottom, looking content to just lean on her walking stick. Just you and me, Sticky. Have you ever done this, Hedwig? Perhaps once, but I would have been a very small child. Marta and I will keep score. I'll declare the winners from down the hill. If you survive, you win. Don't blink. Very funny. Don't fall. Catherine looked oddly nostalgic. Right, who's first? Me against Hedwig. She pulled me forward. 2 barrel lids were waiting for us at the lip of the hillock. Eustace knelt down on one in front of her. Like this. I did my best to copy Eustace's pose on my own sled. 3, 2... I began to slide forward. I thought I had nestled myself onto the lid appropriately, but I must have shifted my weight incorrectly. The makeshift sled carried me forward for a yard or so before I lost my balance completely and tumbled head over heels. After a few moments of disorienting, painful rolling, I came to a stop. My legs were sticking straight up in the air and my neck was awkwardly cramped forward. I could feel that my robes had ridden up my legs. I dare not look and see just how far. I scrambled to right myself and cover up as Eustace slid gracefully down the hill next to me. I have to count that as Eustace's win, I'm afraid. That's fair. How cold is your bum? Margaret jeered playfully from up the hill. I did my best to wave it off as I clambered back up to get back in line for another go. I was somewhat relieved to discover that falling off the sled was not an uncommon occurrence. I watched Angela roll down the hill looking most undignified. God, she wiped out like Calvin and Hobbes. Moira leaned too far forward and got a face full of snow. Even Eustace, who had bested me so effortlessly before, managed to lose control once. Marta picked up her glasses with the end of her stick, offering them to a white-flecked Eustace who grinned sheepishly as everybody hooted at her. I tried twice more. On the first go-round, I fell off again, although this time I had the good sense to roll on my side the rest of the way down. On my third attempt, I managed to smoothly pilot the lid all the way to the bottom, although I was easily bested in the race by Adela. A valiant effort, Sister Hedwig. She pulled me into a sudden embrace and tousled the top of my hood as soon as I stood up. Everyone soon grew tired, myself included. I was surprised at how taxing the whole affair was. Only the youngest were still at it when the rest of us decided it was time to return to wine and snacks. Flora, Bridget, and Violet continued to race each other up and down the hillock while the older set sat down in smaller groups again. Hedwig, care to join me further afield? Certainly, Adela. We collected a wineskin and a handful of fruits and nuts each. As the others did the same, Adela pulled me by the hand out of the crowd and dragged me towards a more secluded area behind some trees, away from the edge of the hill. We settled down. Adela looked pleased as anything to get a moment alone with me. We could hear distant voices, but for all intents and purposes, we were alone. I could turn my head to see small shapes in the distance. Darcy and Eustace sitting together once more, Charity and Marta standing and chatting, and a blob of black that appeared to be the rest of the nuns catching up with Angela. Further away, the sounds of the young ones sledging continued, laughing and shouting. What a beautiful evening. I agree. I prefer this to the Misericorde, I think. Is that because it's outside? What do you mean? Well, you know. You seem to have a passion for the outdoors. I'm not judging you. I respect it. In fact, I might even share your tastes. Oh? It was rather hot where I used to live. I spent a lot of time dressed less appropriately than was expected of me. She put her hand on my knee and smiled wryly. I smiled back, unsure of what to say. Would you indulge me? The lesbian quality of it all no longer bothered me. Clearly not. Perhaps it should have. I thought back to all the brushes with the women here I had allowed while feigning interest. Darcy's kiss had rattled me once upon a time. That felt long ago now. I had started looking at everyone's faces differently and their bodies differently. I wondered what their breasts looked like, how the fat on their stomachs rolled, how their thighs might deform in different seated positions, how they might keep the hair under their hoods and beneath their skirts. In between my escapades, I had begun to search through scripture for some idea of what to do, or at the very least, what rules I was breaking. I felt a dark curiosity. Even now, I can think about this and feel a sick sense of pleasure. It felt like a stroke of luck that the Bible itself says nothing about carnal relations between women. Yeah, kind of an oversight. It doesn't consider that a possibility at all, and I think that is because it shouldn't be a possibility. It is new, unthinkable territory that lesser beings have dredged out of dark depths. Women are the lesser workmen, as Akin has said. And yet, here I was. I was pretending no longer. With an absence of material to prepare for the skilled man, these women had invented a new way to pass the time. It was alien, and something felt sinful about it, even if I could not identify what laws were being trespassed. And my suspicions would bear out, but in that moment, all I could say was, perhaps. I drummed my fingers against my thighs. Adela wasted no time gliding forward elegantly and pressing her lips against mine. My breath halted, and I think I made another ghastly sound in my throat. Adela's hand clasped the back of my head, daring me to break apart. She was not going to be my first. But nonetheless, I felt the exciting rush that came with stepping into the unknown. This rendezvous was under no false pretenses. Angela and I's frustrations with the investigation had forced us together, and my dalliance with Catherine started under the pretense of spying on her. But now I was free to pursue and be pursued by whomever I liked. Wherever I liked as well. She pressed forward and firmly planted her hands on my shoulders to command me to the ground. The back of my head collided with the earth, and I was briefly reminded of the crack on the head I had suffered while rescuing Flora. These dark feelings intermingled with the pleasant surprise of another kiss. The cold air made me jolt my hips upward, and Adela laughed. My thighs clamped back together instinctively as I yelped. With a laugh, she shushed me. I held my hands over my mouth as she yanked my legs apart again and dove between them. It was dizzying, it was overwhelming, and it was everything I had ever wanted. I would have lived happily in that moment forever, until it was time to meet the next sister to share the next moment, over and over for eternity awash in pleasure. What's happening over there? Is this a trick question, Sister Angela? I am not sure why, but after an initial jolt of embarrassment, I relaxed. Part of me assumed, perhaps, that Angela might be excited to find me in this compromising position. This was how we lived here, was it not? I laid there, splayed open and breathing heavily. I grinned at Angela sheepishly, salacious thoughts racing through my mind on their way to my doppelganger. Would she approve? Perhaps she'd like to join in. We could even call more people over for all I cared. It turns out Adela shares my taste for fresh air. What is wrong with you, the both of you? I was just winning the bet. Ladies, don't actually fight over me. She had been trying to stand up, a grin on her face, but Angela put her foot down on her chest to keep her pinned to the ground. You have won nothing, Andalusian slut. Do you hear this woman, Hedwig? She just wanted to win a game. That's all you were to her. How could you fall for her charms? I fell for nothing. I don't understand what the problem is. The problem is that they don't love you the way I could. The problem is that to them, you are nothing but a quim and a tongue. I should have known you would not last a day after making up with everyone. She struggled against Angela's shoe for a moment, finally overpowering her and bolting to her feet. Angela nearly tumbled to the ground, but managed to compose herself. I got to my feet as well, hurt and panicking. I felt as if the gates of heaven were now closing shut in front of me. I was being quite earnest when I made nice earlier. I just didn't expect to find Hedwig spreading her legs for somebody else quite so soon. But Catherine, you had express permission for that. Somebody else? You mean... That's right, Sister Adela. I spoiled your stupid little game. You're taking that far too seriously, Angela. Hedwig, I promise, it was nothing so crass or cruel as Angela is making it out to be. You all planned this for months. My God, dear departed Catherine was the first to suggest it. We fuck each other, Angela! There was no trickery, no deception. You are mistaking idle gossip for a grand conspiracy. I'm mistaking nothing. And even if we are to judge by your rules, I won. Not by lying to her or trying to trap her. Hedwig and I share something that comes from within. Something ineffable and spontaneous. It happened naturally. You are a complete mad woman. You are wholly animated by lust, and I shall deal with you in time. But for now, know this. I care about Sister Hedwig's well-being. We all care about each other, Angela. Oh, come on now. Please. This is exactly what happened between you and Catherine, is it not? Irrelevant. Yeah, okay, did that need to be said out loud? Because I suspected that ages ago. Don't you dare bring her up again. My God, I thought that I could finally put all this unpleasantness behind us. But now I see that trying to live and learn is a waste of time and effort. I should... Stop! The pair of them turned to look at me in surprise. I don't want to be fought over. You say they have been treating me like a piece of meat, Angela, but this is the first time I have ever truly felt that way. You don't feel betrayed. You don't feel sickened by these women and their nasty little game. I don't care. Perhaps I felt uneasy about it before, but after laying with you, I thought I could get used to this. If this is what life has to offer, then I will gladly accept it. It's just how friendship works here. Friendship. That satisfies you? Of course it does. Why would it not? I could hear a commotion brewing in the distance as Angela looked deep into my eyes, clearly wounded by something I had said. Had the others overheard us? Whore! Angela bellowed at the top of her lungs, tears flying out of her eyes as she spun around and stormed away. Adela approached me, her arms open to embrace me in apology, but I pushed past her. She chased after me as I hastily tried to reach Angela. Angela, however, had broken into a sprint. Something had happened up ahead, and I could hear panicked voices and screams. We all caught up to the others at the edge of the hill. Moira was beside herself, and Charity was wailing at the top of her lungs as Marta attempted to comfort her. Flora! Finally, I saw what everyone was looking at so helplessly. A deep divot in the snow ran down the sharp slope of the hill. In the distance, I could just barely make out a shape moving toward the village at a sickening speed. Oh God. What happened? They just marched right up to the hill and went. They did this on purpose? Perhaps they'll be all right. We have to do something. There's nothing we can do until they stop. The small shapes disappeared into the distance. We all held our breath. There wasn't a sound until finally we could hear a pained howl from far away. Everyone winced. Charity broke down into sobs once again. Oh, we should search for them. Right away. It's getting dark. We have to double back and get torches first. It'll be hard to even know where to look. Hopefully we'll be able to hear them. It's a horrible thing to say, but if we can follow screams or wails, we'll at least know they're alive. Well, that is a horrible thing to say. She inhaled deeply, attempting to compose herself. Then, still tear-streaked, she began to give orders. Right then. Eustace, Moira, Margaret, Adela, I want you to grab those torches and get a move down the hill. Hedwig, Catherine, Angela, Darcy, I want you lot to go to bed and save up your strength. One of you should inform the Superior first, I suppose. But I want you all well rested. If the first group can't find them, then we can rotate in shifts. Is everyone clear? Catherine and Angela looked ready to protest, but each thought better of it. Everyone sprang into action wordlessly. We all jogged as fast as we could back to the Abbey with grim determination. Adela stayed as far away from Angela as possible. I, too, attempted to keep some distance from the both of them, but that proved difficult. The group naturally spread apart as Charity and Marta moved the slowest. The forward group, led by Eustace, sprinted ahead to collect the torches. Angela, Adela, and I were left together after all, along with Darcy. As we passed through the men's camp, Angela hissed in my ear like a serpent. What about these blaggards? Perhaps we should let them know you'll let anyone bend you over. Enough! Once we arrived inside the cloister proper, Angela turned around and spoke imperiously. I will notify the Superior. The rest of you go to bed. We should talk about this. There is nothing to talk about until Flora is found safe. We nearly lost her once already. She could not have gotten far. Expertly observed. With any luck, the others will find her. But I'm not willing to take that for granted. Bed. Now. Everyone nodded solemnly. Angela... What? Never mind. I can only hope that the morning brings good news. I am certain that it will. We all marched upstairs to the dorms. There was no escaping the air of dread and hostility. Catherine wordlessly walked into her room and slammed the door shut. Darcy was left looking bewildered. What is going on? It's nothing, Darcy. A personal matter. Oh, that much I can tell. I'm not that thick. Well, Angela is upset with me because... Darcy's brow furrowed. You can tell me. I don't know what to say. I'm worried about Flora and Bridget and Violet, and I haven't got the slightest idea of how to approach this more personal problem. Is this because I did not tell you what I saw in the village? What? No. Had I offended Darcy? I couldn't think of anything I had done. Because I will tell you if you must know. No, Darcy, really, They were dancing, Hedwig. Laughing and dancing. And the ones that were not dancing were dead or dying. Like the farmer. How strange. I did not know what else I could say. This was a bewildering revelation, and my mind was elsewhere. Yes. How strange. Well, is this because I kissed you? What? Do you not trust me as much as I trust you because I kissed you on accident? No, Darcy. I had forgotten all about that. I see. Is it anything? If she expected me to say more, I simply couldn't. Stupidly, I reached for an answer beyond no. Anything to get out of this conversation, I thought to myself. A while ago you said this abbey didn't keep goats, but I found one the other day. A dead one, not far from where I claimed to have seen one butchered in the hall. Where did it come from? Were you lying? You became a different person these last few days. Did you know that? After a moment, she left for her dorm. Well, I disappointed Darcy. I'm just gonna go throw myself off the mountain then. Ugh. Now I'm depressed. She closed her door gently. My little neurodivergent nun, I'm sorry I disappointed you. Feeling utterly defeated, I entered my own room. I fell into bed, my mind burning. For 2, perhaps 3 hours, I had experienced total bliss. I had chosen a path that made everyone happy, or so I had thought. But it had fallen apart incredibly quickly, and now Flora was missing again. I'd arrived right back where I had started. I was too hollowed out to cry. I just stared at the ceiling until sleep came. All right, the finale. Here we go. In my dream, I wandered a familiar desert. This time, however, there were no soldiers. There was no one else here. The tents the armies had slept in were all there, but each one I checked was empty. I wandered through the silent camp, oddly compelled to find someone, anyone, to notice that I was here. The battlefield was vacant too. I shed my clothes, hoping it might attract attention. I tried everything I could, desperate for something to happen. Like what you see? Anybody? But nothing ever did. There was nobody there to chase me or even see me. There was not even a hint of danger. I was alone. It was almost disappointing. I wandered the desert all alone for a while, not seeing a soul. After what felt like hours, the sand gave way beneath my feet and I plunged into a vast ocean. It was peaceful beneath the waves. Beautiful even. For a time at least. What are you doing here? Hedwig? Is that you, Hedwig? Go away. Leave. Go away. I awoke with a start. Not even sleep was safe anymore, it seemed. Was there truly no escape? Would my hungers never be sated again? I was filled with a deep, gnawing, frankly embarrassing need to take a risk. Last night had been this close to perfect. A prelude to a comfortable life of idle pleasures. I rolled out of bed, aching to return to that world. I was being selfish, of course. Selfish and sinful, but at that moment I had no such clarity. The truly important matter slowly re-emerged in my mind as I dressed myself. Had Flora and her friends been found? I opened my door gingerly. The dormitory hall was quiet. Finally, a door swung open. My heart leapt as I saw Adela emerging from her room. Adela, were you able to find Flora and the others? No, we were not. She spoke quietly, with none of the verve I was used to hearing in her voice. It was a doomed expedition, I believe. The hill is steep and the vegetation is dense. Navigating in the dark was treacherous and we were risking great injury. How horrible. Were there any clues at all? None. Hedwig, do you think they did it on purpose? What, fell down a hill? They were rather adamant about wanting to go sledging. And I know Flora had tried to escape Lynbarrow before. I'm just trying to make sense of it all. You don't think they just overextended themselves, having fun? I think they might well have been stupid, but not that stupid. Perhaps there is no use trying to make sense of it. Well, we can ask them when we find them. I presume it's time for the other ship to head out. We can be ready to go as soon as we've eaten. Adela shook her head. The second shift already left. I suspect they will be back before long, however. The prospects are grim, Sister Hedwig. They didn't wake me? I suppose not. Why not? I have no idea, Hedwig. I must apologize, my mind is elsewhere. I do not know what to tell you. And try not to take it personally, I suppose. Surely they just wanted to let you rest. I couldn't bear the thought of conducting an important search with any of these women at that moment. At least two of them were very angry with me, and I was beginning to wonder if I hadn't offended Catherine somehow as well. Good morning. I take it the others are still searching. Indeed. That is unfortunate. But weren't you going to go with them, Hedwig? They did not rouse her. Oh. Huh. Maybe they just wanted to travel lighter. Perhaps. I felt ill. Everyone else is still asleep? Yes. I could not. I have too much energy. Understandable. Well, should we check in with Soup? Angela took care of that last night. I would prefer not to bother her unless we have more concrete news. Understand. Well, if Darcy is out helping with the search, there's no breakfast to be had. And I doubt Soup will be bothering with morning service. Do you two want to go for a walk? I have nothing better to do, I suppose. Yes, I suppose a walk would balance the humors, somewhat. Better than nothing. We dragged ourselves outside, wordlessly. The men had already gotten to work by the chapel. Aside from the light smattering of snow in the air, this could have been a day like any other. You know what this feels like? I think I know what you were going to say. Yeah. Like the morning Catherine was found? Yes. It is hard to disagree. The morning after Samhain. It was not long ago, but might as well have been years. The days have moved slower without her, haven't they? Like walking through a bog. I can only imagine. I did not have to imagine. Not really. I knew exactly what they meant. If Flora really is gone this time, any of them really, I don't know. Perhaps it would be better in the end. What do you mean? I don't mean to sound heartless, but you remember how Catherine tried to dream up escape plans for Flora, don't you? Only vaguely. Catherine and Flora were close. It bothered me, I must admit. Flora was enamored with Catherine, clearly. Who wouldn't be? Only it developed into something of an infatuation. She turned to me suddenly. Hedwig, you're aware now that this is not a particularly pious place. You don't say. We indulge from time to time. Adele and I exchanged a glance. I know. Well, for the longest time, we attempted to hide that from Flora. Much the same as we tried to hide it from you, really. Only for Flora's sake, there was a while where that aspect of our lives seemed totally doomed. With you, it was only a matter of time before you relaxed. Had I been so predictable? I glanced at Adela again. Perhaps I really had been. Flora was here before I arrived, and I never felt as if anything was being hidden in this regard. Yeah. Well, that was after we gave up. Hiding, sneaking around, no longer saying what we wanted from each other plainly. We all got sick of it. Catherine especially, who developed a bit of a mania about it all. She was convinced that not only was it good for us to, but that we had some sort of moral obligation. I never got that sense from her. I just thought that she was energetic. Oh, it was one of her causes for a while. Catherine had the libido of a rabbit and the conviction of a Hussite. Man, 10 out of 10 line right there. Well done, Zizi. And she used to say Hildegard was wrong about two things. Sex and the Jews. What did Hildegard have to say about the Jews? Nothing positive. Catherine took offense, as odd as that may sound for someone of her occupation. She had Jewish blood in her, you see. She discovered this after digging around in her family history. But that's not possible, surely. The expulsion happened in 1290, and... well, Hedwig Catherine was Irish, so the expulsion wouldn't have touched her family. And again, this was very far back in her family's history, apparently. But nonetheless, she was very proud of it. She lamented not having a connection to something she saw as integral to her own history, and did her best to research what she could. Hard to blame her. Could she read and write in Hebrew? Yes. How well, I couldn't say, but she made a point of knowing the basics. What did Hildegard say about sex, though? Also nothing positive. Yeah. So, naturally, Flora, being nosy as she was, and the age she was, caught wind of all of this. As she got older, I knew she wanted something from Catherine. And for a while, I was terrified Catherine might give it to her. Would that have been so wrong? Yes! Of course it would have been. Flora would have been married by now, surely, had she not taken vows. But she did, in fact, take vows. I promise I'm not trying to be combative. No, you're right. In a way. Flora is almost 20. She would have likely married a man Catherine's age and had children by now. But my distaste, I suppose, stemmed more from the fact that Flora felt more like our daughter than our peer. We had watched her grow up. I remember when she was half as tall and much less spotty. My fears were unfounded, though. Catherine was simply excited to have one more person to gnaw on before getting bored. Margaret! That is a horrid thing to say about Catherine. It is true, though, isn't it? It's been long enough. I will always miss her, but she picked people up and put them down at her leisure. Flora was devastated when Catherine did it to her. It made me so angry. I confronted Catherine about it, in fact. It was our one and only real fight. And it damaged our friendship, I think. I felt awful. Anyway, by the time the second or third of their silly little escape schemes failed, Catherine's attention was elsewhere. And Flora, well, I'm certain she realized that her dashing older friend was never going to look at her the way she wanted her to. So it's no wonder Flora wanted to leave. No matter how old we all grew, I don't think any of us would have ever let her into the real Lynn Barrow. And nor should any of you! I'm relieved to hear that this story stopped short of sordid. I agree, but goodness. I do feel for poor Flora. She must have been so thrilled when some people her age showed up. You would think. I do wonder if it could really be that simple. To be honest, I doubt it. We're in our own private circle of hell, and we may as well lick each other's wounds. Or other things, you know. But nobody else should live like us. Can anybody else live like us? I understand. If the younger sisters we are responsible for began living just like us, it would still be wrong. And I think I might feel just as responsible. So in a sense, I do hope that Flora can find a way out of here. Do you think this was another escape attempt? No. Well, perhaps. It just reminds me of those times. And it makes me wonder, would they cross paths in heaven? Perhaps they both escaped. They were both miserable here. Flora is miserable. Let us remain in the present tense until we know otherwise. She is going to be miserable, but she is going to be alive and miserable. Right. Of course. When Catherine grew bored of drawing up Flora's escape, what did she move on to? I hope that was not when she and I were heavily into dueling. I had no idea that Flora felt discarded. It would explain why she became so moody. It was around the time of the dueling, yeah. But that is not your fault. Oh? How do you know? There was something else going on as well. Was Margaret alluding to the murder plot? I desperately wanted to ask her, but I dared not. Adela was here as well, and this conversation was already so dark, I could scarcely bring myself to make it darker. It's already in black and white. How much darker can it possibly get? You just remove the white. I'm hungry. Want to pick something out of the pantry? We collected some meager snacks from the pantry and sat in the cellars for a while. Our moods improved, somewhat, over the course of the next few hours. We chatted idly about frivolous things. For a while, I forgot just how doomed I felt. This was pleasant. It lacked the raw thrills of the night before, but I was nonetheless lulled into a sense of comfort. This was not so bad. If Flora and Bridget and Violet returned safely, would it really be so difficult to live this way? Perhaps Charity could call one of her meetings, and we could all agree that now was the time to put our sinful excuses behind us. So what if the Bible did not explicitly call what we did homosexual or evil? Aquinas did. Hildegard did. There was pleasure enough in company like this, surely. Too late for that now, I'm afraid. Imagine how empty you would feel never touching someone again. The conversation faded into the background, and I stared into the darkness to argue silently with myself. You suck! No, you suck! Evil, it seemed, had finally won. I could fool myself no longer. I knew that there was no repairing a soul like mine. Maybe it was for the best that Flora and her friends were gone. Missing or dead, it didn't matter. They'd escape this place untainted. They would not have to do spiritual battle with their darker halves after getting a taste of what Lynbarrow had to offer. Death might even be preferable. Aha! There you are. Oh, hello. Any luck? No, I'm sorry to say. Although there might be a small hope. Oh? We found the wheelbarrow. On its own? Indeed. A rather grim discovery. But better than finding a full wheelbarrow. That's right. Huh. Hopefully they're still out there, then. We can only hope. We shouted and shouted, of course, but there was no response. How are the others doing? Charity and Marta are taking a well-deserved nap. Moira is... I'm coming! There she is. Did Catherine and Eustace already share the news? Yes. Oh, not the best outcome, but not the worst. I presume we will be sending out another shift? I hate to sound cruel, but is there a reason to? Perhaps they're just gone. We called out to them as loudly as we could and heard nothing back. They're alive, maybe they don't want to be found. That is cruel, Catherine. They could be huddled up somewhere in the cold, too weak to move or speak. And even if they are dead, we would owe them a proper burial. Agreed. We cannot give up on that. I only... Never mind. I understood what you meant, Catherine. Should I come on this next shift? I wasn't roused for this one. No, Hedwig, that's quite all right. We let you sleep because we decided you should be given time to write about the situation. I just realized. Moira, did you search for 2 straight shifts? Yes, I couldn't sleep. My goodness, you poor thing. You need some rest. Oh, you might be right. So I should be chronicling these events? Naturally. This is an important moment. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was a way of being shunned, but this was not the time to argue. Well then, I shall do my best to record everyone's heroism. I'm off to get some sleep. Wake me as soon as you have some good news to share, aye? It doesn't have cold down here. Why are you all here when the Misericorde has a perfectly good fireplace? Oh, God. Good question. Shall we take this upstairs before we head back out to search? I have no objections. I'll be right behind you. I just want to ask Hedwig something. Suit yourself. The others left, and Catherine waited until they were out of sight to pull me between the rows of barrels. Are you quite sure that you convinced the Superior of Eustace's guilt? As best as I could, yes. You are certain? Yes. I can make no guarantees, but I fought hard for you. I know. I apologize. God, it's just so horrible. This must be how Damocles felt. I nodded, unsure if I was meant to understand this reference. Sorry. Another one of Catherine II's favorites. A rather grim story, I must admit, but she loved using it as a metaphor. The Greeks were a rather miserable bunch, weren't they? There was some story she loved quoting to me about some mad woman who killed her children. Medea? That's the one. She always brought it up to cheer me up when I was feeling glum about, you know, that thing I did. She knew about that? Yes. She was the only other person I admitted it to. So, I hope you can understand, Hedwig, how much trust I am imparting to you. Not to speak ill of the dead, but her passing reduced the number of people who knew the truth to 0. Now it's 1 again. I chose a good person to tell, didn't I? You can trust me. I'm glad. So, do you think there's any value in, I don't know, refreshing Soup's memory? I'm rather anxious, that's all. You don't have to if you don't think it'd be valuable. I don't know what sort of conversation you had. For all I know, the balance could be so delicate that pushing things might irritate her. That was more or less my impression, I'm afraid. I argued most exhaustively and presented all of the evidence I could find, as well as some of my less concrete suspicions. I really did my best, Sister Catherine. Oh, good. Good. I just cannot stand the waiting. I know. It must be horrible. Her face suddenly fell. The Superior emerged from the darkness in front of me, and I could sense someone behind as well. Sister Catherine, I'm glad I found you. I must speak with you in my office. Immediately. Superior? As I said, immediately. I'd prefer not to drag this out. Your Revenants, what? Be quiet, Hedwig. But... You may speak when we are in my office. The Superior turned around and began to march into the darkness. Catherine looked at me pleadingly, but I had no idea what to say. Goodbye, Catherine. I had never seen her look so defeated. There was no witty retort, no biting comment to be made. She slunk away after the Superior. I could only hope that my arguments would hold, or that the bishop would protest. I wish that I could have done more, but it was in God's hands. What did you do? What should have been done a long time ago. You cannot believe that! And we don't know if Catherine is involved. In fact, she has a good alibi. She is a killer, Hedwig. Catherine is a murderer, and it is high time that she answered for her crime. But what about Eustace? What about the shelves? Playing pretend was an amusing exercise, but it is time to set aside childish things. You yourself admitted that you had scarce in the way of real evidence against Eustace. What interesting timing. Are you going to have Adela apprehended as well? You would dare imply that I am going after Catherine because of some grudge? How is your obsession with Eustace's behavior any different? Because Eustace's suspicious behavior is actually related to Catherine's death! You just don't like Catherine. I don't like killers. I don't like liars. And I certainly don't like whores. Well, you've likely sent Catherine to the gallows. You might end up all three of those things. How will you be able to live with yourself? Comfortably. Linbarrow is rotting, Hedwig. And both Catherine and Catherine were limbs that were better off being pruned. Don't you dare. And if Eustace must be pruned too, then we can assess. You are mad if you think I will ever want anything to do with you again. We'll both be here for a very long time, Hedwig. Not long enough for me to forgive this. It may take some time, but God rewards the patient. With Catherine gone, Linbarrow will be rid of an incorrigible murderer. And we can be rid of Eustace next when we have stronger evidence. When I saw you spinning around naked and free, desperate for attention, it was like looking into a mirror. I sought to guide you, but you were uncontrollable. One day, however, you might see that I made a good choice. I see so much of myself in you. Once upon a time, I felt similarly spurned and betrayed by somebody I looked up to. Somebody I loved. But then I lunged for her throat and pushed her against the nearest wall. She was too tall for me to properly threaten, but she looked furious all the same. I never loved you. She pulled herself free and straightened her robe. I think you need some rest. What I needed was to beat her head against the wall until there was nothing but neck left. At least that's how I felt at the time. Instead, I turned away wordlessly. I ran to my dorm and slammed the door shut. I wanted to scream. I wanted to die. I fell into bed and bawled until my energy was spent. Darkness came. Mercifully, I did not dream. It was pitch black outside when I awoke. Little dashes of snow were visible every now and then in the moonlight, but that was all I could see. No dreams. No escape. If you're feeling restless, I can think of something you could do. There's nobody who would have me now. They all hate me. Let them hate you. You don't need someone to touch you to feel alive. What are you suggesting? You know exactly what I'm suggesting. It's freezing cold. And wouldn't that feel magical? Overwhelming? A chill more piercing than any partner could be? I made a convincing argument. I stripped naked quickly and wrapped the Superior's heavy cloak around myself. As soon as I stepped toward the door, I heard a sound. Catherine's door. So then. Whatever the Superior had told her, Catherine had at least been allowed to return to her room. That stood to reason, I supposed. If Angela had indeed betrayed me and convinced the Superior to give Catherine up, she would still need to wait until morning to leave. And she would have to pack her things. Gingerly, I stepped into the dorm hall. The fireplace glowed faintly, embers providing the barest amount of heat. I caught the barest glimpse of a cloak disappearing into the darkness ahead of me. Where was Catherine going? Everyone would have been roused if the others had returned with news. I followed as quietly as I could. I watched as she tested the library door. It opened for her and she slipped inside. As deftly as I could, I made to catch up behind her before the door swung shut. She made her way towards the sacristy door and passed through it. Some people had all the luck with locks! I dare not follow her inside such a small room, but I managed to catch the door before it closed. I peeked through the crack, too curious to give it up. Through the darkness, I could just barely make out the painting. Was she going to destroy it before she left? Catherine stepped in front of the painting, preventing me from seeing what she was doing. Whatever it was did not take her long. Realizing that she was about to turn around and leave, I scampered away and hid behind Eustace's old desk. I listened and waited for her to pass. Her footsteps stopped as she passed the threshold to the hall. I could hear something. Sobs? Finally, the door closed. At last, she left, and I was free to inspect the sacristy. I crept toward the painting. At first, it was hard to see anything different about it at all. Finally, I spotted it. Yeah, I noticed that before, too. Didn't have her beauty mark. A small dot on the cheek. Slowly, I began to piece together a few things. If this had been planned as a surprise for Catherine, no wonder Flora had needed her friend's help to sneak around. If the original artist hadn't gotten around to painting this, mole or whatever it was, it stood to reason that Flora might miss it as well. I had been intimately close to Catherine's face many times, and it had still taken me a moment to realize what had been added. There are some details about people that we just get used to, I suppose. Things we understand are part of a person but don't stand out. Or perhaps both Flora and I suffered from a lack of general awareness. Neither of us were fit to be responsible for anything. Why had she done it? Why had those fools flung themselves down a hill? I sighed and left the library. It was not the time to dwell on such things. It was time to indulge. I might never get the chance to do it again, I told myself. The hallway sconces were still lit, as well. Nobody had snuffed them out yet. Flora was still out there, it would seem. The stone floor was so cold to the touch that my feet felt numb. I could not stand still for too long. Inhaling sharply, I made my way out onto the second floor landing. One lap around the Abbey couldn't hurt. If my dreams wouldn't thrill me, I would have to satisfy myself another way. I felt woefully entitled to a bit of pleasure. About halfway down the stairs to the cloister, I started to have second thoughts. It really was cold. My skin felt taut, and I could see my breath in front of me. When I reached the cloister, my legs were shaking. As a Midwesterner, I relate to all of this. I rubbed my hands together and moved briskly. I was shivering, but I was at the very least feeling somewhat satisfied. The discomfort added to the sense of excitement. At the very least, suffering in the cold was more exhilarating than my empty dream had been. As I approached the Superior's office, I felt both fear and amusement. What if she opened that door? The pressure built as I drew closer and closer. It wasn't likely, but it was possible. And even the smallest possibility excited me when the stakes were so high. I broke away to the left into the cellar stairwell. I couldn't help but giggle. Something moved in the corner of my eye. I whipped my head around and pulled the cloak around myself tightly. I squinted into the dark cloister. I could have sworn that I had caught a glimpse of motion, perhaps a figure moving on the other side of the cloister. I squinted through the darkness, but the only thing I could see was the occasional flash of falling snow. That must have been what it was. With a sigh of relief, I moved downward into the cellar. I was feeling peckish. I flew down the stairs and immediately regretted my decision. This was much too dark. There were no sconces here. I was walking into thick, terrible nothingness. It gave me the same sense of unease that the library's shifting shelves did. I turned around to head back up into the cloister and screamed. Someone was standing at the top of the stairs. I did not have time to make out who or what it was. I just turned around and ran straight into the darkness. I ducked and weaved between barrels as best I could, holding my hands out in front of me to try and navigate the maze. After a while, I slowed down to catch my breath. Who was that? Had they recognized me? Had they followed me? I crouched low and listened, trying my hardest to breathe quietly. For a while, there was nothing. I calmed my breathing down, and raw fear was supplanted with slight embarrassment. Perhaps the Superior had opened her door after all. Oh no. Had she found me out? Hedwig? Oh God, I thought to myself. The bishop had seen me in all my glory. I would be leaving with Eustace then. Excommunicated, most certainly. Sent to a workhouse, very likely. Defeated thoughts such as these bounced around my skull until the bishop spoke once more. Sister Hedwig, is that you? I was about to come looking for you as it is. You aren't in any trouble. What do you need? Only I'm afraid I'm in a state of undress. I was on my way to the latrine. Never mind all that. I shan't look. I promise. It wasn't as if I had a choice in the matter. I emerged from the barrels I was hiding behind and pulled the cloak around me as best I could. Good, good. Come along quickly. I require your assistance with something gravely important. He looked harrowed. Before I could protest, he was off up the cellar stairs. As we approached the Superior's office, I noticed that the door was still open. Did something happen? Yes. He continued toward the office. My heart was beating so hard that I could barely hear anything else. When we approached the door, he ushered me inside first. It was nearly pitch black inside the room, save for a small candle on the Superior's desk. We entered the room, and the bishop closed the door behind us. Ah, Hedwig. Thank goodness you're here. It was so dark that I couldn't make out her shape. As the candle flickered, her face and hands were illuminated just for a moment. Thank you for collecting her so quickly, Richard. What is wrong? Nothing's wrong, Hedwig. You've done very well to come when called. He tells me that, as long as you're here, no other harm will come to Lynnborough. Who?
The devil, Hedwig.
The candle flickered again, and I saw the blade waiting behind the Superior. No! Richard, The sword plunged down into her back. I tried to run, but the bishop was already holding my arms behind my back. Let go! Let go of me! The Superior's lifeless face swung down and cracked against her desk. The candle bounced and rolled toward a stack of papers. They caught quickly, and the room was soon illuminated with flickering firelight. The beast strode toward me, blade flashing. As it came around the desk, it dipped the sword into the rising flames, and the glistening blade was soon lit. I could feel the heat rising as the monster approached. I struggled against the bishop's grip. As the beast prepared to strike, I finally dislodged myself after stomping down on his bare foot. He howled and let me go. I fell to the floor and began scrambling around the room on all fours with no real goal, no real direction. I just had to move, and keep moving. I heard the door open behind me. No doubt the bishop was taking the opportunity to escape alone. The beast was distracted for just a moment. I took the opportunity to rise to my feet and attempt to break the window behind the Superior's desk. Try as I might, I could not shatter it with my bare hands, but I could sense the monster closing in on me from behind. I ducked to the side and the sword collided with the window. There was an ear-splitting screech as the tip scraped along the surface before the whole thing popped. My assailant staggered forward as I ran around the room again. If I couldn't leap through the window, then I would try the door. The creature howled in anger and barged after me, pinning me to the door from behind. I screamed and dropped to the floor, a dead weight, hoping to set the beast off balance. Its grip loosened and it steadied itself against the door with its free hand. It began jabbing the sword down at the floor wildly as I slipped between its legs and into the center of the room again, desperate to find something to fight back with. The window was out of the question now. The shards of glass that remained were so jagged that I would assuredly spill my guts into the hedge if I tried. I scampered around the burning room in a daze, on the lookout for something I could defend myself with, something I could use to drive the creature away from the door. As I hurried past the desk once more, I noticed my old workbook resting on the desk next to the Superior's head. The beast lurched forward as I picked the book up and held it open almost reflexively. The dense pages provided just enough resistance against the monster's desperate, glancing swing. I stumbled backwards and dropped the two halves of the book to the floor. My nose had come in handy after all, it seemed. However, the book would not be able to defend me a second time. There was one thing, one single hope I could cling to. That the blade the monster was wielding was its own. Where would the Superior have put the other weapon I had presented as evidence? Finally, I saw it. A flash of metal in the adjoining bedroom, through the door I had seen the bishop emerge from so many times. I sprinted into the room and slammed into the cabinet on the side of the room. The bedspread was askew. There had clearly been a struggle in here whenever the beast had first arrived. As my hands gripped the sword's handle, I felt a surge of triumph. It was short-lived, however, as the monster followed me into the room and began hacking wildly at me. I did my best to deflect the blade, but each time the hot flames approached me, it took all my strength to not flinch. Still, I defended myself with enough verve to be able to change position, squeezing past the monster and sprinting through the flames toward the door. I fumbled with the heavy door and slipped into the cold night air, coughing as it mingled with the smoke in my lungs. I wasn't sure what to do or where to go, and I did not have the luxury to deliberate because my pursuer was hot on my trail. My heart felt as if it could pop as I flew out of the late Superior's office. I could not stop. I had to keep moving. I had to get to the library. Those infernal shelves were my only hope. Up the stairs I went. Heavy footsteps followed behind me. I considered screaming for help at the top of the stairs, but what good would that do? By the time anyone arrived, this thing would have caught up with me, and it was just as likely to kill anyone who came along with me. No, I could deal with this myself. I had successfully avoided it before. There was a lesson here. No more salacious nighttime excursions. That was fair. I could adhere to that. I could live during the day and leave the Abbey alone at night. Message received. I clambered up the stairs and plowed through the door to the library. The shelves. Please, please let me in. I collided with the wall. Fuck! I pounded my fist against the very real wall helplessly, but I could not vent my frustrations for long. I had to keep moving. But where on earth could I go? What could I do? I could see the beast now. Sure enough, it was the same creature that had attacked me in Flora and had run into me in the sacristy. It strode toward me with big, lumbering steps. It carried the sword at its side. I had no choice but to run straight past it to the door once more. I grimaced. I was good at getting myself into the same scrapes repeatedly. I sprinted straight ahead and dove forward, sliding across the stone painfully and crawling beneath its legs to reach the landing once again. I pushed myself away from it by kicking against its metal boot. When I rose to my feet, I had to steady myself against the stone railing with my free hand. I turned around as I did so. I had to assess my next move. The beast turned. Then it did something very odd. It raised a gauntleted hand to its face, if it could indeed be called that, and gestured for me to stay quiet. I did not know what to make of this, but I knew that I was still in danger. I did not scream, but not because I was told not to, but because I did not want to endanger anyone else. But I did run. I just had to keep moving. If I could stay alive, I could think of something. I just needed to keep moving. I ran back down the stairs and into the cloister. Braving the snowy grass with my bare legs, I tried to get away. I dare not turn around to see how close behind my pursuer was. The sound of its metal boots against the cobblestones was enough to keep me moving. I glanced toward the archway. Could I make it to the camp? It seemed irresponsible to bring this demon any closer to more people, but I had precious few other ideas. I was but one woman who knew nothing about swordplay. The builders, at the very least, had muscles and hammers. My lungs were filling and emptying with such totality that I had no opportunity to scream. So when my shoulders were yanked backwards and my legs flew out in front of me, I made no noise. My robe had been caught from behind. I could hear the threads buckling as my body struggled against the cloth. I let go of the sword as the cloak's buckle dug into my neck. It was flung far afield. I watched helplessly as it sailed away. The Superior's old traveling cloak finally tore, and I fell into the snow, free from the beast's grip. The creature loomed over me, blade in hand. Catherine? The monster shook its head. As the beast began to step toward me, I felt a surge of responsibility. I could not endanger the builders, or the other sisters, or anybody else. Where would I run if the men could not bring this demon down? The village? They were stricken with curses already. Would I run until I fell into a ditch on the way to London? I had set aside my duties in favor of simple debauchery. I was the reason things had gotten this dire. I could repent later, but right then, right there, the only thing in the world that made sense to me was rising to the occasion in front of me. Selfishly, thoughtlessly, I allowed pride to animate me. What are you? The monster raised a gauntleted hand to its gnarled face to silence me once again. Tell me. Tell me, or I will scream so loud the whole abbey will wake up. The builders, too. I was nude, bloodied, bruised, and shivering. I had nothing left to gamble with, and no leverage against this beast, other than the fact that it wanted my silence. I can't understand you. I just hear noise. The looming figure seemed to consider for a moment. Then slowly it raised its sword. I tensed up, but the beast held its other hand out to steady me. It turned the sword toward itself. At first, I thought it meant to harm itself, but instead it seemed to be trying to cut something. The sword was far too long and unwieldy for this task, however. Apparently frustrated, the creature fell to its knees and placed the sword in front of me. What? It pulled its robe aside to reveal that under its heavy cloak it was wearing chainmail. Layered on top of this armor were leather straps. Slowly, it pointed to these straps and then to its own head. It indicated for me to pick up the sword. You want me to cut those free? I bent down to pick up the blade, turning it in my hands slowly. The creature looked oddly pathetic, kneeling here. It held its robes open, gesturing eagerly at me. It continued speaking in a muffled and dark tongue. This close, I could sense a familiar sulfuric stench. I could not bring myself to look directly at this thing. And even out of the corner of my eye, there was nothing that I could see that was worthy of pity. The creature's face was nothing but bone and burnt skin. There were no real eyes, nothing to look into and understand. It just looked evil, and I had spent enough time allowing evil to manipulate me. This was all a trick, I thought to myself. I was being played with. Why was I entertaining the requests of a mad beast that had attacked me many times before? What was there to gain from parleying with a monster I could not understand? Quia non est veritas in neo, cum lucitor mendacium, ec propris lucitor quia mendax est et pater ijus. I let out as mighty a bellow as I could. The loudest sound of fury I could muster. I brought my blade down onto the monster's head. The horrid visage cracked open just like a barrel. Bone fragments fell into the snow. I pushed as hard as I could. When I felt resistance, I began to saw back and forth. I had to be sure. I could not suffer this thing to live, but it seemed to me a better choice than going along with whatever little game it planned for me. Eventually, I could saw no more. I tugged the blade out with a pop. The metal was soaked in blood. I expected the monster to fall, but it did not. It remained kneeling, its hands resting at its sides, its head slumped downward. Through the broken skull, I could see viscera. An eye bulging outward. A face cloven in two. A soul leaving its body through a gaping wound I had created. Even through mangled skin and bone, I recognized the poor creature. James. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. And now I am here. Back where I belong. Everything that happened after that fateful sword stroke is a bit of a blur. I remember a few sisters and a few builders coming to inspect the commotion. I know the fire was put out. I believe that Angela is now our Mother Superior. And as far as I know, work continues apace on the clock tower. Right away, I knew that I had to be put back in my cell, but the bishop was long gone. Perhaps he took a mule or horse from the builder's camp, or perhaps he simply walked down the hill. At any rate, there was nobody to perform a ceremony for me, so I am not an official anchoress. But it will do. I must apologize if you were expecting some sort of revelation. This story is a chronicle of my failure, not of the solving of any big mystery. The simple truth of the matter is this. I failed. Perhaps I was too slow. I was certainly too stupid. But above all else, I was not prepared to exist outside of this cell. I'm a prickly thing, aren't I? I harm anything that comes my way, and I stick to people like a burr. I cannot control myself. Not my rage, certainly not my lust. At least now, I am content. Me and my irascible friend are happy to stay in here. Hello. I have my books, and she has my body. At least here, my insatiable desire for sin harms only myself. And who knows? I have a lot of time to make amends with myself. And with God. I doubt I shall ever see heaven, but one day I imagine I might crack open one of the Bibles on my shelf and try and find a way to fix myself. Until then, I am relieved to be caged once more. Flora is dead because of me. The Superior is dead because of me. And I allowed my demons to get the better of me, once again, and I killed James. Even if he, too, is guilty of grave transgressions. He was asking me for help. I denied him a chance to repent. And now nobody will ever know the truth about Catherine's death. There is a much grander mystery here, but the truth died with him. So that is all. I have told you everything I can. What are you doing? To be continued. Thanks for watching, guys. See y'all soon. Surprise! Maybe not. Of course you'd come rushing here as soon as you could, eh? I should have thought of a more creative hiding spot this time. Oh well. There's always the next go-round. Anyway, you won't be disappointed in what I have to show you this time. Or maybe you will. There's a chance you'll be a bit pissed. Sorry to say, but this is always how the story is going to go. The twist you've been dreading is right around the corner. If you've got a problem with it, I suggest you take it up with, I shouldn't spoil it. Suffice to say, we've had many conversations about it. Conversations that I won. Anyway, this'll be fun. And don't you worry. Everything that happens matters. I think it's just important to set reasonable expectations. It took a while to drive down into the valley. The road going down the other side of the hill was even more fucked up than the one Jim had taken me up earlier. He wasn't driving this time. He sat in the back with me, watching the dead guy. Not sure why. He wasn't going anywhere. Jim and the others had loaded the body into the van, insisting that I not touch the corpse. They didn't want me involved. I appreciated the thought, I guess, except I was then told to get in the van anyway. That felt pretty involved. I wasn't sure if it was the body or the bumpy road that was making me queasy. Either way, it didn't feel good. Jim kept smiling at me reassuringly. It didn't work. It's alright. Nothing to worry about. God knows this isn't going to be the only body buried out here. Oh. Cool. You didn't do anything wrong. Am I going to get in trouble? Of course not. Nobody saw us. Nobody heard us. That gunshot was pretty loud. Calls backfire around here all the time. Isn't that right? Yeah. Plus, there's farmers with guns up and down the hill here, scaring away dogs and whatnot. We could have had sirens by now if anyone thought twice about it. Okay. First time seeing someone die? No. Couple grandparents. You didn't watch them get shot, though, I imagine. Hey, you don't know what my granny got up to. I shook my head. Well, I do apologize for that. It was him or us, though, and I wasn't about to put you in danger or legal trouble. Oh, word? He laughed. Well, not his kind of danger or legal trouble. So that guy was a spy? Indeed he was. Never liked him. He was always fishy. What gave it away? Like I said, funny feeling. This wasn't really putting me at ease. Hey look, he flipped that coin and he called heads. So, you shot a government agent who was already aware of whatever it is you're doing? Oh god. Oh god. I'm fucked. We're all fucked! Language, young lady. I'll take care of it. You have nothing to worry about. I would actually like to know how you're gonna take care of it, Jim. I ain't saying she's right, but I'll take care of it. He looked kind of serious. A different kind of serious than when he had shot the guy, too. Before, he had still looked calm and cool. He looked darker now, like he had just had some kind of revelation. So what were you guys doing anyway? Don't answer that. We're in enough trouble as it is. Something important. Uh-huh. She's already in trouble with the government. Don't make her a liability for us, too. Who's us? I don't want to lie to you. Okay. So I shouldn't say nothing. That's fair, I guess. He was quiet for a bit, then grinned at me kind of mischievously. You seem clever. I'm sure you can figure it out. Jim. That's all I'm saying. She's not stupid. Could have fooled me. Jim looked as if he wanted to say something, then just smiled and tilted his head back. He napped the rest of the way down the hill. Not sure how, it was bumpy as shit for the last few minutes. Eventually, the van came to a stop. We all got out and the men began to deal with the body. Jim handed me a flashlight. Sorry, torch. And pointed into the direction of the darkness. Would you mind lighting the way for us? I know I said I didn't want you involved, but it's cool. I'll do it. Jesus! Hiya. Tatiana was there, wearing another new outfit. Or maybe just a new jacket. You scared the shit out of me! Where were you? Had to make a phone call. How did you get here? I walked. Anyway, enough about me. What happened to you? Who's this? What the fuck is going on tonight, Relax. She's a friend. I'm tired of running into friends of yours. I'm a friend of yours, too. She looked the two other men up and down. Oh, yeah? Yeah, I think I recognize her. Of course you do. She's in charge of the whole thing, isn't that right? Something like that. I hope you boys have been nice to Alex. We started to walk and talk. Tatiana took the lead. The masked men carried the dead mole, and Jim carried a shovel. Or spade, whatever. Nice time to make a phone call. Who was it with? The president? It was urgent, I promise. Where did you even make the call? The visitor center, silly. It was still open? Imagine that. Yeah, imagine that. She stopped suddenly and swept the ground in front of her with her boot. Here is good. What was that? I said, here is good. We're taking orders from her now. Easy. It's not orders, it's suggestions. Isn't that right? Of course. What's your name, anyway? No. That's not a fair question in this line of work. Tatiana. Ration? This is getting a bit too international for my taste. Bristol, actually. It's probably not her real name. Were you two born yesterday? Anyway, I trust her. That should be good enough. Now, shall we get this poor sod buried and get on with our lives? Tatiana's lips curled into that demon smile she loved doing. Here is good. Jim broke ground first. It didn't take long for him to get tired, though. Hard to blame him. He was an older guy, and the ground was pretty mushy. I offered to help, but he shook his head. He and his comrades began taking turns. Tatiana watched for a while, but got bored or something and turned away. You boys, mind if I smoke? Yeah, go on. She turned to me, jerking her head toward a spot a few feet or yards or whatever away. Meters. You want one too? Yeah, actually. Thanks. Keep the lighter covered so you don't give us away, eh? They are clever, aren't they? We stepped away. Tatiana offered me a cig, but even after a few puffs, I wasn't feeling much calmer. Nervous? Duh. Don't be. I've got it all figured out. So you're a spy too? Or assassin, or whatever? I work in publishing. Uh-huh. How long have you been smoking? Few years. Do your parents know? Hell no. That explains it. You hold it funny. Like you're going to have to put it out at any minute. I'm in college, you know. It takes a long time to break a habit. They definitely know, by the way. They've never said anything. Of course they haven't. Why would they? Smoking's bad for you. Hasn't stopped you so far, though, has it? I was really not in the mood for her bullshit. I'm only trying to lighten the mood. You have nothing to be worried about. I just saw a guy get shot! You're making memories! I opened my mouth to respond, but saw something that shut me up quickly. Headlights in the distance. Oh, shit. Put these out. Car coming. Cops! 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 Tatiana? Keep digging. She turned around. She looked as smug as ever. This is a friend. You have too many friends. I swear I saw Tatiana roll her eyes behind her bangs. She turned around to face the oncoming vehicle. It was a boxy off-roader. It bounced over the boggy terrain. It came to an awkward halt, nearly spraying me and Tatiana with mud. The door opened and I couldn't believe my eyes. Eustace? The plot thickens! Hi. I'm gonna have to add some bass to this voice finally. Get in the car. I did need to be asked twice, but I heard protests behind me. What's going on? I called a ride for our young friend, so you don't have to worry about getting her home. Probably shouldn't stay at my place again, I'm sorry to say. Already thought of that. I told them to swing by and pick up her things. Did you now? Hope that's alright. I'm sure Eustace was perfectly lovely to marry. He can be a little prickly, but he knows when to be polite. He. Okay, he. So this is a male Eustace. Isn't that right? Sure. Your wife says to make sure to come in quietly. Always do. We really need to move. With the police? No, but the longer we stick around, the more suspicious this looks. Right you are. Alex, now's the time to say goodbye to old Jim. I doubt you'll see each other again. Yeah. Thanks for letting me stay with you, man. Not at all. He paused for a moment. Sorry it all turned out like this. Yeah, me too. Good luck with whatever it is you're doing, I think. You'd probably approve. But for both our sakes, I think it best I not say. Correct. Well, take care then. Tatiana and Eustace got back into the car. Eustace. I hadn't even begun processing how weird it was seeing him here. I turned to get into the back seat, but stopped. Weird as it sounds, I didn't feel good leaving Jim so soon. What was your son's name? Was that? You mentioned having a son. What was his name? Could we, I don't know, get in touch? I appreciate that love, but I don't think that's a good idea. You know. He nodded toward the grave and winked. Right. You would have gotten along, I'm sure. I think so. His dad was an interesting guy. I'm sorry, wait, hold on. I just noticed look at the license plate. It says none sex. Oh, man. Oh, if I could only get away with, titling this episode that exact spelling, too. All lead speaking. Jim chuckled, waved, and then turned back towards his comrades. That was the last time I ever saw him. I got into the back seat, and Eustace pulled us away. That ended nicely, I thought. Little bittersweet. Just how I like things. He had the radio turned all the way up. It made it kind of hard to hear. Shut up. Aw, we haven't seen each other in so long. That's no way to talk to an old friend. You two know each other? I know. What are the odds? When you mentioned you had a friend who was researching Lynborough, I had an inkling. You are so full of shit. I like the new look. It's not a new look. It's been a while since I last saw you, so I look how I look. Sometimes it's one way, sometimes it's another way. I like the uniform. It's not a uniform. Okay. Flattery's not going to get you anywhere. I'm not impressed with you. A dead son? Really? I don't know what you mean. Jim's son died? Of course he did. Nice to see you, by the way. Sure. Yeah, it's nice to see you too. Jim's a folk hero motivated by tragedy. It's trashy. It never happened. That's rich coming from you. It didn't even come close to happening. Still rich. I think it's great stuff. Anyway, we can talk about this later. We have so much else to catch up on. I had no idea Lynborough was still on your mind after all these years. Yeah. I don't know. Of course it was. It was a hard one to forget. No thanks to you. No thanks to you, he says. Is he this grouchy in your college classes? No. Kinda. Uh-oh. I mean, I don't know. I like it. I sort of respect it. She likes you. Hey! Jesus Christ. New topic, please. Ouch. Okay. Why did you mess with my book? What book? None Left Alive. That's not your book. It's a book someone here wrote about Lynborough. Yeah. I gave it to Alex because I thought it might be a nice primer, but you deleted everything in it. I did that ages ago. Got an internship at the publisher and swapped out the press. Just to fuck with you, really. I've been following the rules. Mostly. Really? Hand on heart. Well, okay, at this point I have to ask whether or not you actually have a heart. You could have orifices behind your knee for all I know. I'm a little touched. So you just never looked inside the test print? You knew it was rubbish. It's not rubbish. The cover is nice. Now, speaking of following the rules, how come that... Not in front of our guest. Not yet, at any rate. I kept hearing insane shit that I wanted to jump in and ask about, but to be honest, I was still reeling from Eustace's reaction earlier. Jesus Christ. And it was a long shot, I guess, but shit. All I could do to fight the heartbreak was listen to their bickering. The cover is great, but you know everything on the inside is total bunk. You know that all of these conspiracy theorists are completely wrong, right? I think it's cute that you care this much. All this time and you're still clinging to your obsession with accuracy. I've never seen somebody quite so unable to enjoy their own fantasies. I don't want to have this argument right now. I haven't budged, and it sounds like you haven't either. I gave you all this time to reflect, and you still won't admit what interests you about Lynborough. My goodness. Maybe I did admit it to someone. Maybe I just won't admit it to you. All right, then. We drove in silence for a while. At this point, we were already halfway back up the hill. I was very grateful to be on even the wobbliest dirt road after being shaken around off-road for so long. You're at least sort of right about None Left Alive. Don't start. It's not as good as yours. I just think it makes an interesting point. I said I didn't want to talk about this. It doesn't actually make that many changes. It made enough. I didn't like how it portrayed Catherine. With a K? Yeah. You have to admit, the evidence is pretty compelling. Anything can be made to look compelling when you're that far away from it. It's easy to stitch a handful of clues together. Not so easy when... Tatiana arched an eyebrow. When you know it's more complicated than that. Fair enough. You know what I think is funny, though? It gets one really crazy detail right. I doubt that. It does. In fact, it gets the detail right. Which makes me right, by the way. If somebody here was able to piece it together, coincidence, I'm sure, then this was always... Used to slam the brakes hard. My head whipped into the seat in front of me. Careful! Honestly, you and your temper tantrums. I don't want to talk about this while Alex is here. Okay? It's been ages since I last saw you, and I was really hoping that we wouldn't have to immediately lay back into it. What's it? Stop playing dumb. Just put a sock in it for the rest of the drive, okay? Is that okay? Suit yourself, then. We drove back down the other side of the hill toward the village in silence. I felt sick. I'd seen a guy get shot, and Tatiana had blown it for me with my crush. It was honestly a bit difficult to decide what was weighing on me more. Either way, being stuck in the car with the two of them arguing was making it so much worse. I like the license plate, by the way. Oh, she noticed! Total coincidence, if you can believe it. I can't. We finally arrived in the village. Eustace stopped the car in front of the pub I had visited the night before. Get out here and call her a taxi or something. I'm not driving you two all the way to Heathrow. Me and Tatiana stepped onto the curb. She helped me grab my suitcase from the back. Eustace fired the engine back up again, but Tatiana rapped her knuckles on the window politely. What? Walk up and have a drink with us. No. Oh, don't be mean. I'm sorry we got off to a bad start. Come on, I'll pay. Eustace thought for a moment, then rolled his eyes. The car pulled away. So, think he'll join us? Yeah. Come on, let's get a seat. The pub was pretty much empty, same as last time. Our table was free again. We sat down. The mood was pretty low. Tatiana's smile was impervious, of course. Well, that's the publishing business for you. Somebody's nose is going to get knocked out of joint at some point. Somebody got shot! I'm shaking a little. How was I going to explain this to friends? Family? I'm a staunch fuck-talking to cops believer too, but like, I don't know. He was a bad guy. Okay, but that's still super illegal. Like, we should not be talking about it in here illegal. You think the landlord's a spy for MI6? Don't worry. I already thought of that, actually. And? It does stretch credulity a bit, don't you think? I don't know. I guess so. But at this point, I'd believe anything. Is that a promise? She looked like she had just thought of something really funny. What are you talking about? You packed the book, yeah? I think so. I put it back in my suitcase this morning. Take it out. I didn't feel like arguing, so I unzipped the case and started feeling around until I had the book. Here. Open it up. It's gonna be blank. Well, mostly. He put a bunch of creepy text at the beginning. Oh? What did it say? Don't. A message for me. That's cute. Flip through towards the back. I did. Any pictures? No. Wait, yes! Right at the end. She grinned broadly. I knew it. That had to be printed on a different machine. They don't normally put illustrations and whatnot in this format. I held the book open to the page that I had seen the black shape on. Why is there a picture of Christopher Columbus in this book about English nuns? There was that demon smile again. I shivered. Why indeed?